Hello and welcome to World Breach Report number 24 from Sean Hunts Monsters. And I am your host, Sean, and I'm out there hunting monsters. And in this podcast, or videocast, or what do you even call these things anymore? In this episode, which, like every other episode, we discuss the files that can help you escape the cage that imprisons your mind. Thanks and gratitude for everyone who has shared, liked, and subscribed. You are helping in this battle against the forces of darkness. And as always, make sure you swing by the Discord server. It's inside the links there, where you meet a small community of people who are gradually growing in size and are dedicated to the idea of hunting monsters, which, you know, it's kind of a strange thing to do because I'm based in Canada, and even though I've got my Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl Bigfoot hat on, which was generously given to me by one of my monster hunting buddies, I figured I'd wear it for the episode. Yeah, it's interesting up here because, like, hunting is, Canada is an extremely left-wing country. If you're left-wing, man, you would really love British Columbia, where I live. It's very, 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 very left-wing. So if you're sort of going that way, then, yeah, you would really like the cities and that sort of thing. But I've noticed now that I'm kind of, like, just recently I started a job and I'm working in the trades, and that seems to be a little bit more right-wing leaning. So it sort of seems like if you have a task where you are working at a desk and you press buttons for a living, you tend to lean more left-wing. And if you are working with your hands and doing stuff, you're probably leaning more right-wing. And that's not meant as a slam or a slight. That's just a basic observation for someone who's been around for a long time. They say that a young Republican has no heart, but an old Democrat has no brain, which was an interesting sort of standpoint. I try to stay away from the political thing myself, but it's kind of hard because sometimes politics gives a crap about you, even though you don't give a crap about politics, which is, in a word, annoying. And especially since, you know, in my country, if you say the wrong thing, you can go to jail. So there's actually our hate speech laws in Canada have gotten to the point now where if you dispute certain things or certain things you're not allowed to talk about, or, you know, much like in England, if you make the wrong kind of joke online or whatever, they're going to show up at your house and they're going to come and take you away. Which makes me wonder about some of the things I've done in the past. You know, some of my older podcasts, that would be, let's just say we wouldn't be able to do those today, that's for sure. But, yeah, it's kind of an interesting time that we're living in right now, which is part of what I've noticed going on in the world. Like, it seems like, to me, especially with all this UFO disclosure, which we'll get into a little bit now, it seems like we're kind of rushing headlong towards something. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about some follow-up here. It turns out that I was complaining a couple of podcasts ago. I was saying a few episodes back that why hasn't David Paulides been on Joe Rogan? Why are they bringing all these other people, but they don't get David Paulides on there? Isn't that a little bit weird? Well, sure as snot, they brought David Paulides on Joe Rogan, so hooray! Good for that. Very pleased about that. And he gives his interview, and if you've heard Dave before, it's a sort of a rehash of every other interview he's given. He talks a lot about the same cases, but he's probably reaching a much wider audience who he's never missed before, so I'm very pleased about that. And this should generally point people in the right direction. Now, of course, he doesn't really close in with his own theories. He's sort of kind of leaning into the UFO thing right now, which everybody seems to be leaning towards the UFO thing. Meaning that they talk about it like, you know, there's alien craft, non-human intelligence, and they're kind of they seem to be sort of angling away from the ultra-terrestrial motif, which is world breaches and things from other dimensions. Which I think that this is like a baby step kind of program. First, you have to admit that there's creatures that exist that are outside of our understanding, and then they'll introduce the other dimensional thing. Because apparently, during some of these disclosure talks, they're talking to a lot of priests, and they're very concerned about, like, outworld type problems. More so, some people would say, well, I mean, Sean, you're talking about UFOs, these religions are going to take a hit. Yeah, but I think it's more than that. So I've been right before, and I maintain that these things are not actually from space. I think they're coming in from another dimension. That's what I think is happening here, and I think it's largely connected to our consciousness, and last but not least, I think we're being farmed. So generally, when you're being farmed, it's a bit of a mind screw up, you know what I mean? It's kind of a total, you know, mind beating to get there and be like, hey, you're a farm animal. So That's not the most pleasant thing to do. It has a tendency to make your sanity a little bit fuzzy, makes your reality pillars get a little bit wonky. And that's one of those kind of things that I could see that they'd be talking to a lot of priests about that kind of stuff. Now, I think that religion is just a format, which unfortunately organized religion has kind of turned into a method to control you, like just about everything else in the world. Everything seems to be something that's used to control you. I don't really understand why. Well, we all understand why. I suppose it's human nature. But people are drawn into that. Usually they're born into it, or they find a void in their lives and they're searching for something. And so they find solace in faith, in this religion, which is, no judgment. If you're listening to this and you're like a Mormon, Muslim, person of the book, Jew, whatever you're into, hey man, party on, Garth. I hope you have fun with that. But we can all kind of objectively agree that on its face, like, religion is way crazier than any UFO thing ever. Like, guy died 2,000 years ago, came back to life, and now we transmute his blood into wine. And I mean, come on, this whole thing is kind of wacko. So, well, you can't say that about my faith. Well, yeah, you kind of can. You know what I mean? Like, and everyone's trying to view like these outworld entities through the lenses of like religion. Are they demons? Are they angels? It's kind of like, I think we need to kind of move a little bit further past that. Not that let's be clear. I think there's good and evil, and things can be evil without having to classify it with old world knowledge. But I do think there is good and evil. I think we're more than our physical bodies. And I think that as if we can approach this as a science we don't understand, we'd probably get much further ahead than if we try to fall back into dogma and whatnot. So that's just me. It's just my own personal kind of take on this kind of thing. But within our life and our society, it seems like if you kind of feel like everything is getting a bit more intense, there's a story here that they talk about fun death. According to a report from Study Finds, nearly half of U.S. adults are struggling to find joy in their routines, with financial pressures and overwhelming schedules emerging as primary culprits in what researchers describe as a growing national fun deficit. So this is an interesting thing. Now, I would say that one of the major reasons for this, they're saying overwhelming schedules and financial pressures. The reason why I think people are having this go on is much deeper than this. The national survey conducted by Talker Research on behalf of Dave and Buster's paints a concerning picture of American leisure time, released on May 26, 2026. The findings show that 48% of respondents feel their lives are seriously lacking in fun, while 12% cannot remember the last time they enjoyed a completely free day. Now, this might be a little bit misleading. First of all, we're addicted to dopamine, right? Like, everybody's on screens 24/7. We got to have a dopamine hit. And like any drug, the more you get of it, the more you need in order to make it happen. You know what I mean? So I think that's probably part of it. Another thing is, once again, our diet. The diet, your diet is probably crap. If your diet is not crap, you know it. Don't try to justify your diet to me in your comments. Don't do it. I'm just saying, like, if you know you're eating crap, then, and if you start to justify, well, I only drink pop, but I generally eat well and blah, 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 blah. That's like saying I only have poison some of the time. You know what I mean? So realistically speaking, we have to start living on purpose. We have to take accountability for our own lives, for our options. And that's effort. That's effort. You're already tired. We're already taxed. And it's going to cost money to do this stuff, right? Like, it costs money to eat. It costs money to eat well. But if you're not if you're not getting convenience food and you have to actually meal plan, it costs effort. So the money costing isn't really the problem. It's the effort. And I mean, I can feel it. I know what that is. It sucks when you got to come home and first thing you got to do is meal prep for the next day and make sure that there's, you got some sort of a solution that's going on there. But there's ways around it. Sous vide is really, really good. Making sure you're eating high protein and things like that. Trying to come up with a plan for some sort of type of exercise. But even still, 70% of fitness is in fact diet. So I think that, maybe if you were to only drink water and not look at your screens as much as possible, like just stop looking at the internet. But that means we wouldn't watch your show, Sean. You know what? If this was the last YouTube video you watched, you said, yeah, you know what, Sean's right. I'm gonna hang up this YouTube thing. Fair. Fair. Go with God. You know, way you go. Have a good one. Enjoy your media fast. You should be extremely selective about what you put inside of your head because it's being used to control you. And, you know, we've known for a long time now that television, for example, stimulates that part of your brain that makes you, I believe it's, well, it triggers the munchies. And I've heard people say that it triggers the part of your brain that causes, basically makes you hungry. And so this is why you'll sit down and you're watching, you know, the screens and everything, and you start stuffing your face. I mean, we've all done it. I mean, I struggled with it because I have a sweet tooth like nobody believe. I've said before, I'll kill a box of chocolates just to watch it die. But, you know, is that good for you? No, it's bad for your pancreas. It's bad for your body and sugar and all the other white deaths. It's all, we know this. We know this. You know this. But it's one of those inconvenient truths that's just hard to follow. It's hard to catch up on, and you know, trying to be accountable for that stuff. I think that's probably got a much, between the media, the social media saturation, and yeah, sure, there's a lot of, I mean, we're getting the news bombarding us, but that's more media, right? So if you were to just unplug and maybe drink some water, you can go outside once in a while, you might find that life is not quite so incredibly bad. Maybe some of that fun would come back. And if you can afford, you know, $5,000, go buy yourself a TW200. It's fun on two wheels, and you're the least likely way to hurt yourself. Learn a skill. Learn how to ride a motorbike. You won't regret it. On that, I just came back from an adventure out into the wilderness this weekend myself. I doubled the amount of kilometers I had on the bike. Up until this point, I've only ever put about 150K on the bike. When I got back on Sunday, I'd put 350K on the bike total. And that was a lot. And yes, my butt did hurt. It is true. But getting out there into the wilderness, it was good. It was smart. And it was a good way to get an idea about what was happening. Yes, I did shoot some footage. No, you can't see it yet. I'm going to need to shoot a lot more ship footage. And really, eventually, I'm going to need to learn how to, use multiple cameras and edit things together and generate more footage. But let me tell you, all that stuff takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. So this episode here, these episodes that I'm putting out, the Sean Hunts Monsters World Breach stuff, this is kind of the baseline. I was briefly considered, saying, oh, hey, what if I stopped doing the Sean Hunts Monsters, the World Breach stuff, and I just focused on actual shows? Like if I tried to, take that time and put it towards something else. Well, these shows don't take that long. It takes me a couple hours to put together a show format, however long the show recording is, and then we process it and upload it. So flash to bang, it's a pretty convenient way to make this happen. So I'm definitely not going to gain anything by, giving up this program. And there are fans of the show. There are people who enjoy the show. So, yeah, don't worry. The show's not going to go anywhere. And it's nice for me to be able to talk to you about this stuff so you understand what's going on. I have every intention of trying to create more, flashy, that's a good word, content. Something that the normies would enjoy to watch, something you'd be proud to share with other people and say, hey, you want to check out this YouTube channel. But that's something that's a bit of a process, you know what I mean? Like, you got to be it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. So in the meantime, in between time, you get me, yours truly, sitting here talking to you, trying to set this as a baseline for the programs. Another guy who's been doing this a hell of a long time, which I'm really, really pleased, is Ricard Dolan. And I like Ricard Dolan. He's a good guy. Really good dude. Kind of shoots from the hip. And he's been studying this stuff and an observer and a commenter on this field for quite some time. So he actually gave his release on the second UFO drop from the Pentagon. Now, if you're unaware of this, there was one big UFO file dump, and then there was a second big UFO file dump that some of the stuff was redacted by the next day, which I thought was kind of interesting. So it might be worthwhile that when these UFO dumps happen, you download everything right away so that you have it in case they do the same thing again and they pull it, which seems to be something they're doing. I'm not really sure why, but they seem to be doing that. So in this link, which I've got in the sorcery there, you'll see that Ricard Dolan reviews the Pentagon's second Pursue, is what they're calling it, Pursue release, which he finds substantially stronger than the first. The release includes military infrared videos showing fast-moving spherical objects, unusual formations over water, a striking cigar-shaped object over Kabul, and multiple long-duration military tracking sequences. Some cases may eventually have conventional explanations, but several raise serious questions that are not easily answered by vague references to birds or drones. In the video, Ricard examines the stronger clips and discusses what appears to be genuinely anomalous and separates the more compelling cases from the weaker ones, which is, it's not a bad read on it. And on that, since we're talking about it, I picked up his audiobook, A History of USOs, Unidentified Submerged Objects. Now, I thought, well, it's actually a pretty good book. And then his volume 1, apparently, for his softcover, he wants $60 a copy for the softcover and $100 a copy for the hardcover, which I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot of money to spend on a book. I mean, especially a new book. This isn't some rare book that's out there. And this is just basically an amalgamation of underwater reports on UFOs. So I kind of thought that price was a bit steep, to be straight with you. And yeah, it's good as an audiobook. I enjoy it as an audiobook. It's not bad. But I don't know if I'd pay, like, if I was maybe a ship's captain or I was a nautical kind of person who really wanted to get into this stuff, $60 is kind of steep, you know? I mean, holy cow, that's a lot, especially in this day and age where we're all trying to save a couple of bucks here and there. It's, so I was, good book, but Rich, man, what are you doing? You're killing me with these prices on these books. I mean, I guess he's vanity pressing it or whatever, but holy crap, man, like, really? Like, you couldn't make that $30? Because $30, yeah, even $35, you know, $37 I could see, but like $60 a book, man? Jesus, for a softcover? Dude, that's sick. And of course, it's volume 1, right? So, I mean, kind of seems like a bit of a cash grab. I'm not going to lie. Not going to lie. Now, in the paranormal hunting realm, in Sean Hunts Monsters, of course, the name of the realm, there's 2 different shops, which I wasn't that familiar with, but there's 2 places you could go to buy paranormal hunting gear. GhostStop and SpiritShack. There's probably a couple other ones. But I found a website that was going over the advantages, disadvantages of both. If you're building your first paranormal investigation kit or upgrading your current ghost hunting gear, 2 names probably come across are GhostStop and SpiritShack. Both sell specialist paranormal investigation equipment. Both stock popular tools such as spirit boxes, EMF meters, EVP recorders, cameras, triggers, objects, and ghost hunting kits. And both are aimed at people who take ghost hunting more seriously than simply downloading a random phone app. But which one is better? The honest answer is it depends on where you are based, the type of equipment you want, and whether you're looking for beginner-friendly tools, specialist devices, or a wider ghost hunting setup. Now, a lot of these tools are just simply branded electronics that you could build yourself. So I think that the way to look at this would be to go to their site, see what they're selling, and then look at what you can buy online that isn't branded. That will be a lot cheaper. And yeah, if you can get a phone app, I mean, a phone is a pretty sweet piece of kit. And if your phone app is giving you some stuff, why not use the phone app? On top of all this, let's also understand that electronic stuff tends to be some of the first stuff that goes with some of these, you know, things that happen when you're ghost hunting or even UFO hunting. It seems like the paranormal is, it's a thing that affects electricity. So that's, and isn't that kind of weird? That whole electrical phenomenon thing, I find that to be kind of exceptionally strange, actually. I'm not really sure why that is, but I mean, well, I suppose we're electrical beings, right? Like our bodies, everything about us, we're electrical by nature. And we have our own currents and systems. I mean, they say that you can detect voltage off of an egg. So maybe electricity plays a lot bigger role than you might think, you know? And there was a guy who came up with a book a while back. I believe it was name escapes me. Brutal. I can't remember the name of the book. But he was talking about how everything in the universe is electric, and then they attacked him for it. I think I covered it in a previous episode. And he discussed how everything in the world and everything in the universe was electric. He wrote a paper on it and just released it to the public, and he just got crucified for it by academia. But I think it's Our Electric Universe, maybe? That could have been it. But anyway, yeah, and so I think that electricity plays a much bigger role in this kind of, in our day-to-day lives, and perhaps we're even willing to admit. So that's something to think about as well. And, of course, we've got yet another Bigfoot sighting. Yes, it seems that a late driver could not believe her eyes when she spotted what appears to be a young Sasquatch that seemingly sent a boulder tumbling down an embankment along the side of the road. Sharing her experiments with the Bigfoot Research Field Organization, link to it in the description, witness Gail Kay explained that the remarkable sighting occurred this past Friday afternoon, which is about 2 weeks ago now, when she was driving through Gifford Pinchot National Forest. The normally routine drive took a wondrous turn when she first noticed some rocks and other debris spilling down the embankment along the side of the road and a large boulder in the ditch. Puzzled by the peculiar scene, Gail gazed up to see what may have caused it, and to her amazement she saw a reddish-brown, furry figure standing at the edge of an embankment. While the sight was very brief, the witness stressed that it was a curious creature, was standing upright, and was not a human or a bear. Based on the perceived size of the figure, which wasn't particularly sizable, she theorized that the suspected Sasquatch could have been a juvenile. I was not looking for Bigfoot, Gail mused in her report, but this was the only explanation for what I saw. Now this is interesting because people see these things and then they're like, oh, if it's a small one, it's a juvenile Bigfoot. It's not like a totally different creature, right? It's not like there's something else going on here where, you know, because if there's world breaches, there could be any number of these types of creatures. They've been seen all over the world, different islands, all over the tropics, all in literally every country of the world, and they see these things. So why is that? Why is that? Why is it that you see these shorter ones and the taller ones? Well, the shorter ones are juveniles. Well, that's pretty convenient, isn't it? Unless, of course, we're dealing with a totally different species of creature. And if it was a juvenile, why was it out there on its own? Where were the parents at? Was this a delinquent Bigfoot causing vandalism? Was this the equivalent of, like, dropping rocks off the overpass? I don't know. I don't know, but one thing that is weird is that we're automatically, you know, what she saw was a small, reddish-brown, furry figure standing on top of an embankment, throwing rocks down. And then she theorized it's a juvenile Bigfoot. Well, that's, you know, maybe it was. But let's deal with what you saw. And there's been a number of people that have seen these smaller creatures running around out there. Maybe they're not juvenile. Maybe they're full size. Maybe there's something else going on here. It's like, you know, we like to think that, oh, there's only one Bigfoot, but it could be like fish. There's lots of different kinds of fish. Maybe whatever these creatures are, or wherever they come from, it could be a lot more options if once you become open to the idea of the world breach, which we know for a fact. We have video of breaches opening, you know, tear in the sky, all that kind of stuff. We know what happens. Bermuda Triangle, we know what happens. So is it so bizarre that this happens in the woods and in the wilderness? I don't think so. But apparently, she's going to call it a juvenile Bigfoot. I didn't see it. I wasn't there. But I guess your brain's going to try to make sense of it. And speaking of, it seems like the good people at NASA are trying to come up with a new moon base. Yes, NASA has unveiled a wide range of moon-based developments on its Artemis program. Seeks not only to return humans to the moon, but also establish a permanent infrastructure there. Now, this is interesting because there was a bunch of stuff that got said in the last UFO dump where basically astronauts were like, yeah, we were told not to come back here. There's something on the moon already. Yeah, this kind of seems like the beginning plot of a horror movie, to be honest with you. Let's build a base up there. We'll see what's going on. Yeah, it could be a little bit terrifying. You know, you go up there and you find something on the moon. And apparently, because the government's already released that a lot of the stuff the astronauts saw was legit, what is that going to mean? Among the disclosures was new information about crewed autonomous lunar rovers, timeframes, and a lunar South Pole exploration mission in preparation for crewed landings. These moon-based missions will lay the groundwork for humanity's permanent presence on the lunar surface. We're sending drones first. The moon base will be America's and humanity's first outpost in another celestial world, said NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. Every mission, crewed and uncrewed, will be learning opportunity as we return to the lunar surface, build the infrastructure to stay, and master the skills required to live and operate one of the most demanding and dangerous environments imaginable. During the presentation, NASA clarified its plans by announcing 3 missions designed to help establish a foundation for a permanent moon base, all of which are scheduled to launch this year. That's pretty ambitious. The agency also hinted that these 3 missions are only the beginning, with more than a dozen additional announcements expected later this year. Now, that's interesting, because what if we found out that, like, there's actually something on the moon? Would that make sense with all this disclosure stuff that's happening right now? Maybe this is prep work for that. And, oh, hey, our drones got smoked. Look at that. Oh, hey, oh. And, Is this what Werner von Braun was talking about? You know, the Nazi SS major who was working for NASA for a long time. He said that there was going to be a goal where it was going to be a declared war against aliens, and that was going to be how they, you know, allied everybody together. An interesting idea. An interesting idea. But I'd like to see what comes of this whole lunar moon-based thing. Might be a good time for you to pick up that bike. I'm just saying, be mobile. Don't lock in. Don't stay stationary. Always keep moving. Very important. And then, quite probably, if you thought that going to the moon and building a lunar base there, when we know there's aliens there, we don't actually know what's existing. If you thought that was a bad idea, China's like, hey, hold my beer. China launches human artificial embryos to space in a bid to see whether reproduction is possible off-world. So let me get this straight. Okay, I'll just get through this. China's Tianzhou 10 mission not going to deliver, already has delivered, embryo-like structures made of living stem cells to the Tiangong space station. Experiments could shed light on how radiation and microgravity affect human reproduction. China's become the first nation to send human artificial embryos to space in a bid to better understand how microgravity and cosmic radiation may affect human reproduction. The results could have big implications for our ability to set up self-sustaining colonies on the moon and Mars. Human artificial embryos to space. So they sent replicants to space. I don't know, like, does this not sound like, what if they like develop all of a sudden and now you've got like these space humans? I mean, this is just, you know, science fiction waiting to happen. The embryo-like structures are made from living human stem cells, arrived on Tiangong's Heavenly Place space station in the early hours of May 11th. As part of a resupply mission. The mission also delivers around 7 tons of cargo, including 7 tons, including food, fuel, spacesuits, and other scientific experiments. I wonder what the other experiments were. To the Chinese astronauts currently living on the station. The Tianzhou 10, which is similar to the cargo ships that deliver supplies to the International Space Station, lifted off from Wenchang Space Launch Site about 5 hours earlier, EDT on May 10th, and the Live Sciences sister site space.com reported it. So, yeah. Now, I want to talk about, like, what if they do, like, gain of function? What if there's, like, gain of function in space? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that be kind of, you know, that just makes its own gravy, doesn't it? You can just kind of think of what the hell these guys are going to do in space. And then, you know, what this, I mean, are we going to start shooting each other up there? Are we going to start making our own monsters? Is that the big plan? Because it seems like China's working overtime to kind of create some pretty scary stuff. And this is the stuff they're telling us about. You know what I mean? Like, what about the stuff they're not telling us about? You know, that's what kind of blows my mind. Because this just, I don't know, these stories kind of bring us back to the idea that we need to become more accountable for what you're doing and what you're putting in your brain and what you're doing with your brain. Have you started meditating yet? Have you started looking after your diet yet? You know, have you started a little bit of exercise? Are you drinking lots of water? These are things that are important. There's some news stories floating around about how water, like, alters your consciousness and stuff, which, I don't know. It seems like the internet's getting more and more tabloid all the time. As I've been online a long time, and it's just more, the signal to noise ratio is getting, like, really out of hand. You know, guys like me are out here, we try to give it to you straight. And there's a bunch of us who are, you know, doing the best we can. But on the whole, man, it's a pretty challenging time out there to be someone who's new. And what about these kids that are getting online and they're, you know, I mean, their reality is getting pretty screwed up. Sean Ryan and another fella had Tucker Carlson, I guess, had this young kid on who was talking about how they've got these cults now, Order of the Nine Angles, and these guys that are making girls send nudes of themselves, and then they blackmail these girls into, like, cutting themselves and doing horrible things like killing their cats and all kinds of just really sick shit. And these aren't like small groups. There's, like, you know, literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are in these groups. And you'd wonder to yourself, like, how does it get, how is there this many deranged, sick people in the world? And this is because I think evil is a thing. I think evil is a thing. And evil does some of its best work when you're distracted, when you're not focused on what's going on, when you feel overwhelmed. And that's why now more than ever, it makes so much sense for you to look after yourself. Be one of those people who maybe be a bit more of a hermit. Maybe after this show, you should turn off the screen, go outside and touch some grass, because it might just be really good for you.